All right, let's go ahead and get this thing started. Let's see if this autofocus is working. Look at that. Sony, who would have thought, has the best autofocus in all the mirrorless world? Crazy. Recently, I released a video on how I installed my paper backdrops and my canvas back here, and I made this really interesting articulating arm so that I can move this one in different orientations. Today is an extenuation of that video. I'm going to try to hang another gravity backdrop in a way that I can hide all of these chains back here and create kind of a cove that makes it look seamless. And if I have time today, I'm actually gonna hang another backdrop to give it even more of a three-dimensional look. Let's jump right into it. All right, so it's been several weeks since I did that last video, and I've done a couple photo shoots in here, and for the first time, I kind of have a break to where I can get back to installing this stuff into the ceiling, and I really want to get it done now because I'm just tired of this place looking like a wreck. The one thing that I want to do is I have another gravity backdrop. It's very similar to this. You've seen it throughout our whole channel back when we were in the old home, and I want to install that one. It's actually right down here on the ground. I don't know if you can see it. I want to install this one basically a little bit in front of the seamless paper, but I want to have it to where when you roll it down, it's going to hide all of our chains, and it's going to create kind of a cove that looks seamless and you don't see an edge, and it's just gonna be really clean. I've actually found over the last few weeks that I leave this articulating backdrop more in this open position so that I can shoot a lot more wide, but I think today's the day to finally get this other backdrop hung. You guys might remember some of these 3-hook hangers. I cut off the back of this, so I still have 2 of these. I'm not exactly sure if I'm gonna use this one, but I think I've just ordered a few of these single hangers. I think I'm just gonna use 2 of these kind of in the corner here to hang this one. And then maybe later I'll revisit these ones that have 2 just so that I can, hang the other 2 backdrops that I have. And as always, I like to use these aluminum rods and put them in between my paper or mount my canvas to this. These things are great because you really just slip these in together here, just like this. Helps to have a screwdriver. And then you can just tighten that little screw there. If you do all 3 of them, I think you get this piece like this. It's about 10 feet long. And this is what I'm gonna use to measure this. So let me go ahead and reposition the camera, and I'm gonna show you my thought on how I can get this to look perfectly seamless so that you guys can do this at home. So before I roll the next gravity backdrop on here and tape it and everything, I'm gonna make sure I measure everything just with the aluminum bar because it starts to weigh a little bit more if you have everything up here. Now, if I were to just mount this right here like I have the other paper, my chain for this backdrop is gonna come right down here, you're gonna see it, and you're gonna have this gap in here. Instead, what I wanna do is I want my other canvas backdrop to fall down as close to this as possible, and then my chain could actually be behind it. And I think the way to do that without losing too much usable space is to mount this thing maybe like right here, just literally a few inches in front of my seamless paper, but then I also have this back piece behind it and higher up. Luckily, this canvas is dropped about 7 or 8 inches down from the ceiling, which gives me plenty of space to mount the second one a little bit higher and then push it further back. I need to get my rollers on here and measure everything out and put some marks on the wall, and then of course, as always, I gotta drill even more holes into the concrete, but I think it's gonna be worth it. Now, to prevent dust from going all over this backdrop, I'm gonna go ahead and roll it up and take it off, set it on the ground, and that's gonna give me a little bit more space to actually get this done. Unlike last time when I was drilling in here, I didn't have this whole studio built out, and so I was getting concrete dust everywhere. One thing I love about photography gear is that you can pretty much come up with a solution for anything. If you need to mount something, photographers, we have every piece of gear to do that. So what I've done here, I don't know if you can see this, I've taken my shop vac, and on one side I've clamped the hose to a super clamp, and then I've taken a second super clamp and clamped that to my light stand. And so now I can position my vacuum exactly where I need it. So hopefully this solution works, because if I get dust all over all this computer gear, it's not gonna be pretty. Might be cleaner, but it never gets any easier. Right in there. This is a cool little socket wrench. Instead of finding the exact size, this thing just has all these little pins, and it just grabs your nut really well, and I like this thing a lot. All right, so when you just have one person, let me show you what I did. I went ahead and hung my aluminum bar up there on the hook that I just installed, and then using one of these kind of temporary Varipoles. I just pop that into place. And then I use this little J hook up here to suspend the other side. I don't have another set of hands to help out. And so basically now what I need to do is I need to figure out exactly where I need to screw this one in to make it nice and plumb and you know, straight with the other rolls. All right, so we got our second mark up here. It's time to drill our last little hole. Now the way that I like to roll my gravity backdrops up onto my aluminum reams is I like to use gaffer's tape. This is just 2-inch gaffer's tape. And I get it as long as I can kind of manage. So I want to just get this to where half the tape is on the canvas itself and the other half is exposed. The goal is just to have the piece of tape run the entire length of my canvas. And I'll show you why here in a minute. I like to have this go the entire length like this, as opposed to just little pieces that you might put every, you know, 5 or 10 inches. So now I have 2 pieces of tape running all the way down the length of my canvas. Go ahead and get rid of my gaffer's tape there. And then I'm just gonna roll my bar all the way to the edge here, line it up to the length, and then I'm just gonna roll it back on itself. And when I roll it back on itself, it's gonna roll onto the tape. I'm gonna put a little pressure as I walk this down. And so now my tape is attached to both my canvas and to this aluminum bar. I'm now gonna roll it forward. And as I start to see the tape, I'm going to just run my hand down it to really make sure it's nice and secure. If you're gonna open up your canvas all the way, say you have tall ceilings and you wanna have this completely lengthened as much as you can, you might also wanna run a second piece of tape on the inside. Now I'm never going to undo this entirely, my ceilings aren't that tall, so I'm probably always gonna have at least 1 or 2 loops on the back of this that keeps it nice and taut, but you can definitely use more tape if you feel like you're gonna open this up all the way. And then once we have that nice and secure, I'm just gonna get on the other side here. I'm just gonna start rolling this forward nice and tight. Now one thing I intentionally did on this side is I left a lot of space, and this is the space where I'm going to overlap the other seamless. So let's go ahead and spin this around and get it hung. Oh, this actually is a lot more work than I ever think. I was like, oh, I can knock this out in a few hours, and it's taken most of the afternoon. So it looks pretty good. I think we have the clearance that we need. Let me go ahead and get our chain mounted on here, and then we'll roll this thing down. I think we should have a perfect little cove with all of our other chains hidden, and it should look like a seamless wall. All right, so there we go. We've got our second backdrop hung. We have this little tiny line here, but it looks a whole lot better than all the chains and everything, and now I can shoot much wider, have a pretty consistent background. If you had white rolls of paper, you could do the same method. Make it really clean if you wanted to have it to where you could just Photoshop the line out. The real key to this is just to line them up in a way that when you roll the back one down, there's enough gap behind it to kind of give you the illusion. Let me go ahead and take you around the corner here. You can see as long as you have enough space to where there's a good gap here, but once you step further away, and especially if you go this direction, I mean, you really can't even see that at all. Obviously, if you come around this way, it's gonna start to show the shadow. And if you were right here and you zoomed all the way in, you know, you might be able to kind of see what's back there, but I think this looks really good. All right, so now that I have this done, the next thing I wanna do is I wanna hang just a small little canvas right here in the corner and hang it down. And so, I don't know, it just kind of gives you like a multi-layered look. I might even mount it a little further ahead to kind of give a little depth there. So let's see if we can knock that out. All right, so it's been a few days since I got these 2 backdrops installed. I love the way that the 2 canvases come down and create this kind of seamless little cove. But as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, my original intention was to also create a 3rd little backdrop system so that I could roll down some backdrops and have them inside this cove so that I could give the layered look, or I could hide this corner altogether. If you look back here, I have a couple different gravity backdrops, and my thought is just to have them go from like this corner to this corner, kind of the way that they're set up here. I recently ordered a new backdrop from Gravity. This one's kind of a beige color, and what's incredible is these things ship from Serbia. And every time I've ordered one of these to South Carolina or here in Puerto Rico where I live now, these things have shipped in like 5 days. So I don't know how they get something all the way in Serbia to the United States so quickly, but UPS has been killing it. So I'm gonna open this one and have one option that's a completely different color. And then back here, I don't know if you can see this, I also have another gray backdrop that's very similar to the tones that we have here. And the idea is that, you know, I could hide this seam, or if I want a completely different looking backdrop, we can use this. So to do this, I think I'm gonna use these hangers that I have. Again, these were 3 hooked hangers, but I cut the one off of each one so that I could do my articulating arm in the previous video. But I'm just gonna take these 2, mount them here into the ceiling, and then I'll be able to have 2 smaller backdrops that will be able to fit right between these 2 and give me a lot more options. Let's get to it. All right, so now that I've got my first one up, I've just put 1 screw in so this can pivot, because I now need to put a second one up here and figure out exactly where the bar should be so that it looks really good aesthetically. So I'm gonna go ahead and work on this one using a Variopole, just like I did in the previous one. And then once I have everything set up perfectly in the direction that I want, then I'm gonna put in the final 2 screws to really make sure that these are nice and secure. And just like our previous build that we did earlier in this video, I'm going to try to put my chains behind this other backdrop so that when everything is installed perfectly, the chains are hidden. Now, because this backdrop is only 3 or 4 feet and these are like 7 or 8 feet, you do have to cut your bar. This is gonna be significantly shorter. I'm gonna go ahead and put in my other roller here, and hopefully we can get this thing mounted to see how it all looks. Because this pivots, I can get this to fit exactly where I need it. And hopefully I can measure out the second one to be perfect as well. All right, just cut my second bar. Let's get this one mounted. And now with this one, I'm gonna be able to really fine tune the distance of these 2 roller plates. They don't have to be perfect, but I just wanna make sure, and that's probably good there. Once I have these in place, I'm just going to mark the hole for my second one. Without a second hand to help, this is a lot of little steps, but I think it's gonna be worth the effort. All right, everything is mounted and it's time to now hang everything up. All right, we got one up. Let me go ahead and attach my chain so everything can be lowered without falling down. All right, I got one backdrop mounted. Moment of truth, let's lower this thing down and see how it looks. All right, this backdrop's really interesting because on this side it's very gray, but then it transitions into this beige color. So I need to figure out which side do I want to mount towards the ceiling and which side I want to mount towards the floor. I think I'm going for more of the beige, so maybe I'll mount the bar on this end so that when it's rolled down, we have more of a beige color towards the floor. Now I'm also going to mount this a little off center so that I can show this backdrop here if both of them are down. They're about the same width, so if I mount them exactly the same, when this one's down, it's going to hide the one behind it, and I think it could be cool to have just another element of texture. So I'm going to move this closer to this side here. Just like last time, we're going to just simply line this up as best as we can, and then just roll it straight back. Hit the bar, roll it forward, tighten everything up. All right, and now that we got this transfer, let's go ahead and get this one hung up. So there you go, the final build. We have the second backdrop hung so we can hide all of our chains, and then I've got 2 different backdrops here that allow me to kind of get that layered look. There's a lot of different varieties that you can do. I could roll one up, roll the other one down. It gives me a lot to play with. And if I ever wanted to change out and put just a smaller roll of paper for, say, a headshot or something, these little ones are gonna be perfect for that. Of course, I also do have my other rolls of paper in the back. This gives me a ton of flexibility and it really doesn't take up a lot of space. And now, because you can't see that seam back there, it makes this space look a whole lot bigger. Keep in mind, I'm just in a 2-car garage. Space is definitely limited. If you guys are just stumbling across this video and you want to check out how I made this articulating arm over here, make sure you check out the first video. I have that in the link in the description. Speaking of descriptions, make sure you head down and subscribe to Fstoppers, because this year we're trying to reach 1 million subscribers and we're oh so very close. And if you want to support this channel and learn from some of the best photographers in the world, head over to fstoppers.com/store where you can check out our full-length tutorials. We have tutorials covering everything from landscape photography to architecture, headshots, swimwear, fashion, macro photography, product photography. So if that interests you, definitely head over there and check out our tutorials. And if you really enjoyed this video, go ahead and subscribe to the playlist below, because I'm going to be releasing more studio hack videos and show you some of the little things that I've done in this studio that have made my life a whole lot better. You're definitely not going to want to miss that. I will see you guys very soon.